Okay, now we're live. Hello. Hi. This is our live show for Ninefox Gambit. I think Nikki may be joining us in a bit, so she might appear halfway through. I guess we'll start with our general thoughts and then move on to spoilers. Usually takes about 10 minutes, but depends really how much we've all got to say. So does anyone want to go first on general thoughts and feelings? As you can see, we've all picked our own faction.
Yes.
We could explain ourselves on that if you wanted.
I think Angela should go first.
You think I should go first? I'm now wondering if I spelled an array right or wrong. I'm like freaking out. I'm looking at the spelling of my faction.
It's Kana. Causing chaos.
Yes.
So it's I. What is it?
Nirai.
Okay, sorry guys. This is really important to me.
That's okay.
Nirai. Okay, we good now.
Yeah.
So this is a book. I'm sad Justine's not here because Justine is the one who put this book on my radar. We buddy read Middle Game last year, and she's like, if you like Middle Game and how confusing this is, I read Ninefox Gambit and you might really like it. I'm like, And so I picked it up and I didn't understand the first chapter, and I'm like, yes, love at first sight. This is fantastic. I was very into it. I was taking notes. Like I had pages of notes, me trying to piece together the world.
It's a lot of dedication.
Yeah, I was having fun. People really like doing that for House of Leaves, but this is shorter and I think a little more fulfilling. Nikki! Hey, Nikki.
Oh, I wasn't nothing.
Fine. So I just love this book a lot because it's confusing, but also I love the dynamic between Cheris and Jadao a lot.
Yes.
And I like its execution of how it doles out world building, and I think that only gets better in the series, and it's just going to be so fulfilling when I do reread the first book. Mm-hmm. And I chose this faction because these are the engineer mathy people, and so they're the people I feel like I would be. Although maybe I'd be like Cheris and I would fit into this faction, but I would choose a different one and be a rebel. Ooh. I don't know. I'm going to mute myself because my cat's having an
I can hear him.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Angela assigned mine, but apparently it fits. It's a love of paperwork and intelligent operations and stuff like that. So this was my third Yoon Ha Lee book, and I think this one was my favorite.
Which ones have you read? What are the other ones that you've read?
I've read The Dragon Pearl, and now I can't remember the other one I read.
Phoenix Extravagant.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like this one the best. I thought this one was really, really fun, and I enjoyed trying to figure out stuff. And I kept comparing it to Malazan because it's kind of similar, like it just throws you in. But I think Malazan felt more like work, even though it was rewarding. And this one was just a ton of fun and easier to kind of figure out as you go.
No, I don't mean to distract from Stephanie. He's just being a butt today.
Having some feels.
He just needs some
That's okay. He can steal the show.
Well, he doesn't know what he wants. He wants Ryan to be back from getting groceries.
Oh, I've just seen that you guys have done this with a quiz, and
we didn't take the quiz. Well, I assigned.
Some of them were assigned. I just made mine up.
Nikki, I don't know. How much of a rules follower are you?
Depends on the rule.
Well, you're not Kel.
Yeah.
I'm a math nerd. I'm going to go with the same as you.
There we go.
How do I edit my name? There we go.
I had that struggle as well.
It's a nice chaotic live today. It's really
good.
These are what I look for.
Chaotic, but I feel like having a nap right before was a really bad idea.
Need some sugar.
Well, Carrie, you said you already got the second one on, you asked for it from the library. So tell us about your experience. This excites me.
Yeah, so I finished reading it yesterday, and literally the next thing I did after marking it as read on Goodreads and Storygraph was went onto the library to request the next.
Yay.
Yeah, I really, really loved it. For me, it just gave me the same feeling, and it is a very similar kind of, not necessarily concept, but style and world building and narrative choices to Ancillary Justice, which I also loved.
Justine said the same thing.
Pretty much as soon as I started reading it, I was getting that vibe. And while I have enjoyed other types of sci-fi in the last couple of years, it just took me back to reading that and how much I loved that book. And totally held up in comparison. Probably helps it has been a couple of years since I read the Ancillary Justice book. But yeah, it just took me into that kind of, has everything that I loved about that series. So it was a ride. But also I was prepared to find it confusing, but I didn't find it that confusing. Yeah. And also people say that about Ancillary Justice, and I didn't find that confusing either. So I think it's just this type of sci-fi clearly works for my brain.
I have stared at that book at my bookstore for years, and I've never
Same
picked it up.
here.
And now I clicked the 2.
Can we nominate it?
Yeah, I just pulled that up on another browser. Yeah. Let's nominate it. That seems
I
good.
would be totally happy to reread that.
It's just that series has stared at me on the shelves. I'm like, I don't know if I'll like this or not. No one talks about it. I don't know what this is.
And this is kind of funny because we had that in the we just read that short story in the Mythic Dream collection by Anne Leckie. Yeah, and both of us were like, we've never read anything by Anne Leckie before.
And when I was reading that story, it was pretty
Y'all having too much fun.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit, yeah.
It's her birthday on Friday.
Yes, it was.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Well, I will leave y'all to it. I just wanted to say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Have a good whatever it is.
Well, and Kayla, when we read that short story, something I brought up was the world building is really confusing, but in the way I like, which is how Ninefox Gambit does it, and I guess potentially Ancillary Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think because I liked this and I liked that, if you liked this, you'll like that. But that's just because I like both of them.
That seems reasonable to me.
There's some good logic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I've gone for Andan because they're the cultural people, and that's probably what I was kind of the way the Rahal appear in this book. I could kind of see some aspects of that I'd be all right with, but yeah, no, I think more.
You were all happy I didn't give anyone Vidona because that's bad.
Wait,
you don't want to be Vidona.
I'd be evil.
They're a special kind. They're a special kind of evil. Well, Amber, you've been quiet, so did you not like this book and you don't want to
Yeah, I didn't like it, and that's why I'm Leosh. I'm the heretic here. Yeah, I really struggled to get into it, and I don't know if it's the pressure, because I only started it on Thursday, of trying to rush.
Could be.
Which is not a good idea with this book. But I do have it from the library for another month, so I am prepared to give it another go. But I just really don't think it was the kind of world building for me where you're just kind of thrown in there. And yeah, I'm more of a character-based reader, I think, and I didn't feel that connected to the characters.
I think I struggled with it a little bit, so I get that.
General Jadao is one of my favorite tropes, so I don't really know how to... I was instantly, when he comes in at around page 60, I was like, all right, I'm sold. I'm very
That
sold.
improved it a lot.
Well, yeah, it says it on the back of the book, but General Jadao comes in and he's a revenant, which doesn't really make sense till you read the book, but he's basically a disembodied voice, and it's one of my favorite things for a main character to have a disembodied voice companion. I just love that.
I'm thinking it's one of my favorite tropes as well, because that was one of the things I really loved about the Tex Kalan books as well.
Yeah.
There's just this voice in her head. No one
now
else.
you mention it, I didn't like that in that book either. So maybe this is why I hate
Clef and Foundry side.
Well, see, this is interesting because I did not like A Memory Called Empire, but liked this and Foundry side a lot. So that, who knows?
I definitely liked it in both.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I remember texting when I finished, and I was like, I am confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'd go as far as saying I loved it, but I did listen to it, and it is confusing, which is why I was like earlier. I was like that. I did find it a little bit confusing, like trying to kind of figure out what was going on. But I loved General Jidao, and the arguments that only people can hear half of is amazing as well. Like that bit, I was just like,
yes. I guess I need to go. So this was an interesting journey, I guess, with this book. It was one that I had seen in the bookstores for a while and like had looked at it several times, and I was like, I know I've heard so many confusing things about this book. I don't know if I'm going to like it. And then Angela read it, and I remember, I don't know if we like necessarily talked about it one-on-one, or, you know, just hearing you talk about it. I was like, okay, this seems interesting. And then I think I found it on sale for ebook for like $2. So I was like, I mean, okay, sure. As I do a lot of the time. But yeah, so it took me a while, I think, to get into it. And I was like, I have no idea what the hell's going on. This is confusing. I don't know what like this like heretical calendar situation is, but I was kind of intrigued. And I think I went in knowing that like things wouldn't necessarily make sense, and I think that helped me because it's like, okay, I'm just along for the ride, you know, I'll figure it out maybe. And that kind of did happen, and I ended up liking it more than I thought I would. I loved like the whole Cheris and Jidao situation. I loved them together. But yeah, I think it's been a rewarding series. Like I think it makes a lot more sense as you read on, and it's cool to be able to put pieces together. And I feel like, you know, now that I'm talking about some of this world building and not having any clue what's happening, I feel like I had that same sort of feeling reading Vita Nostra recently, where it was like, who knows what's going on, but my brain's gonna come up with something.
No, I had that exact experience.
Yes.
I just finished Vita Nostra on Friday, and I'm like, I generally get a sense of what's going on.
Yep.
And I have analogies, and it's even down to the same thing where it's just like programming almost, both of them. And I was just like, I have a sense. Could I teach a lecture on this? No.
No. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, before this live show started, I was like, oh, what faction should I be? And Angela's like, I mean, really, this is not even a question, Kayla. So.
Well, when Kayla was reading this and sending me thoughts like last year, she was comparing it and talking about biostatistics and different like, I don't know, there's different words in that space of research that compared to how these like exotics and the calendars work. I'm like, okay, so you have a better understanding of probability than me, and so you get this.
Yes.
So that's what the engineers do. They make the calendars.
Yeah. So I feel like that probably helped me enjoy it more, because like there were definitely things where I got really excited. I think it was the short story collection that may have had a lot of the causal stuff, but I was like, oh, I know what this is. Like, oh my God, what was it?
I know, I think that was in the
potential
book.
Outcomes, I think, is what it mentioned, or something like that.
Okay.
And
the short story collection is cool because you can tell that he wrote the stories sometimes in help of preparing the novel. So you're like, oh, this short story, if it was the prologue, would probably have helped a lot of people because it introduces a lot of world building words. But also, I don't think I would have wanted it there. Like, it would have been helpful, but I wouldn't have wanted it.
Yeah. That sounds right about right. But yeah, so I don't know. I definitely, with all these books, there's been like very mathematical, statistical concepts, and I'm like, yes, I love that.
Maybe that's why I don't find it confusing though, because I don't have a brain for maths really hardly at all. I mean, I used to be quite good at it when I did it in school, but I don't really use it. So I'm just like, I'm not going to understand the math stuff, so I'm not even going to waste any brain energy trying to figure out what that means and just go along for the ride.
That's how I was.
spent a lot of time thinking about calendrical heresy and what the fuck that meant.
Calendrical rot. Yes.
I loved the whole concept, but I did not understand any of how it was come up with, like how you applied it and then how you broke it and had something else. And I was like, none of this makes sense to my brain. My brain wanted to cry. I loved it, but it wanted to cry.
I think that's my issue. I think I was overthinking things and trying to figure it out. Like in the beginning, I think it's the first chapter or the third one, when they have the swords with the dates that are going kind of crazy. And they're talking about the rot there. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's affecting all their swords. Is this like a time travel alternate universe thing? And then it just wasn't. So I had completely the wrong end of the stick. I was like, oh, worlds are colliding. But no.
Yes.
Yeah, I think when it comes to confusing things, I don't necessarily always have to understand it, but I do have to latch on to something. And I think being able to have that is hit or miss, and it doesn't have anything to do with one's intelligence. It just has luck and analogies. And pretty much in the first or second chapter, I was like, okay, I don't know what this calendar means, but I'm comparing it to a computer operating system now, and no one's going to make me stop. Because I can understand that a program can work on a PC, but not a Mac. And if you change the operating system, things break. I don't know how the operating system's made. I don't know what's happening.
Yep.
I think that's a really good analogy.
It
that
is.
I used, because my brain was just trying to make sense of it. But also I would have just been like, but how did they make an operating system out of nothing?
Well, if you read further into the series, you might find out.
Maybe.
I mean, will I? Because if I won't, I'm not sure I will.
I mean, I do think they explain it, but I don't remember if it's very clear or if I just put it in the same category of, okay, this is good enough, hand wave.
I think they do explain it more.
I think it's explained relatively explicitly. It was a lot of what I predicted based off the stupid like fractions they gave us in the first book did end up happening. So
I think for me, coming from a theological background, we talk about doctrine and heresy quite a lot and the power of belief. And so I think that was kind of, it wasn't the mathematical thing that was my way, and that was my way. And I understand how like heresies work and are stopped. And yeah, so I think that was probably why I didn't worry about the maths. I was like, okay, so they have a belief system that makes their calendar work, that makes all these other things work. And if people don't follow the correct beliefs, then it disrupts the calendar. And that was
and that's an appropriate latch. That's a correct one.
Actually, to be fair, I think that bit was probably why I was like, I sort of understand the concept, but I want to understand the theory. Like, but yeah, that's a really good point, that it is very much a belief system, not a scientific thing in many, many ways. And I'm just trying to science the shit out of it because my brain says, but I don't understand.
Wait till you get further on and you realize that the spaceships aren't what you thought they were.
Oh no.
We're gonna have to have a support group for book 2.
Oh my god. So good.
I love this series so much.
Yeah.
Mainly because like the imagination goes there. And like also Yoon Ha Lee, what's the word for it? When you don't visualize in your imagination very well. Aphantasia. Yoon Ha Lee has aphantasia, but I thought that, I mean, as someone who is like that, reading that, I still thought everything was very colorful and like vibrant. And I was like, I didn't know what the exotics were doing, but I was like, this is cool. No one else does this in space. Everyone else just has boring ballistics. I like this.
I do think this is probably the most imaginative sci-fi I've ever read. And I kind of wish I had bought them physically, because I have all of them on ebook, but I'm like, they're so pretty, and I would reread them, so maybe I should buy them.
They're really pretty. They're also soft. I don't know if that matters to you, but they have the soft covers.
I do like that.
They were only like less than 300 pages, so they're so easy to just, if you want something shorter. They're such good palate cleansers, even though I know it's complicated stuff, but I've just been reading a bunch of big tomes lately, so this was nice just to be able to breeze through it and just have fun.
And I feel like it kind of says a lot. Like, I read that book a year ago, and I still feel like I can remember at least a decent amount of it. I probably don't remember the specifics, but like certain things stick out in my mind. And I think that is, I don't know, a good quality for a series like that could be like a favorite, I guess.
Well, and it has so many cool elements. So we have this weird calendar that's its unique thing, but we also have like these droid AI things, those servitors, and like you know that they're not being watched, and you're like, well, what are they doing? Should I care? What'd you say, Nikki?
I was obsessed with them.
They all look like animals, like all of the animal imagery and stuff like that.
I love just more of the servitors. I would have a whole book on like them and their backstory and whatever the hell they were getting up to in the background. Like I loved the idea and I wanted more.
If you read more, you might get more.
Yeah. Yep.
I get that impression.
Angela's really selling the sequels.
I mean, I will say, so I have the weird unpopular opinion that this is like better for me than the sequel, like this first book. My third book's my favorite, but this is my second favorite. And almost everyone has like the second book as their favorite. Because it is better at explaining the world, it expands the world. You actually get to understand what like the average human's going through and things like that. And a lot of people like the new characters introduced. I just was unprepared to not have Cheris and Jadao as like my main character set.
Maybe it was okay. I was just thinking about like the causal stuff. Maybe that was the third book. I can't remember.
I think it was while we were reading the third book.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
But so a lot of people love the second book because it's not as harsh in its world building. There's a little bit of info dump. You know, you get some explanations.
I thought I read it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking back at my ratings.
We read Revenant Gun in December.
Yeah, I thought oh, maybe the third one was my favorite.
Yeah, we read Revenant Gun in December.
Lord. No idea what's happening.
I mean, time's not real, and that's really...
You're reading them better than you do.
I mean, this book really tells you that time is a construct. It is something
Okay.
you can mold into whatever you want. Do you want a 7-day work week or a 10-day work week?
Oh my god. Yeah, no, okay. So I definitely wrote that the third one was my favorite installment. Okay, so ignore everything that I've said about which one was my favorite, because I clearly can't remember.
I mean, the second one has my favorite cover, I think, maybe. I like the green of that cover.
Yeah. They're all so, like, colorful and exciting.
Yeah. Like, those I would have bought those for the cover if I had not known anything about it. They're so pretty.
Do we want to enter spoiler realm, or do people want to keep talking spoiler free?
We're already ready for spoilers, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
In 22 minutes, so.
Well, what did you guys think of that ending?
That was absolutely wild.
I mean, I sent you all a message when I was about maybe 50 pages from the end, like, this is resolving. This doesn't feel right. What's going on? And I kind of love that. In some books, like, when you kind of like, but why is this resolving? There's still so much to come. And then the rest of it, I was just like, oh, wow, what?
I was confused.
Kind of, really blew my mind. I thought it was really cleverly done.
Agreed.
I just loved getting to learn about Jadao. I didn't know that that's where we were just going to randomly have flashback scenes, because that happens at the end of the first book, right? Like, it's just climactic moment and now flashback scenes.
I think that's what I was waiting for the entire way through. I really wanted flashbacks earlier on. And then all of a sudden they're at the end.
Stephanie.
Sorry. I have the menagerie in my office.
Yeah, I don't know where mine is, but she must be out, otherwise she'd be attacking us. I think we should do with extra cats.
The way, like, that whole kind of climax of, like, that, I've been calling her Cheris, but Cheris, however you say it.
Do not trust my pronunciations. Don't.
Yeah, I like it. It's always a guess for me.
The audiobook, I think, pronounced it Cheris.
Yeah,
because I did immersion reading.
Nice.
So she thinks, oh, this is all over. I'm being relieved. This is like, it's been resolved. Everything's gonna kind of be fine now. And then she's got a Jadao in her head going, no, you need to do something. These guys aren't on your side. And then it's like, boom, and then whoa. And then when she remembers the thing about eating the shards, and I was just like, that kind of like the whole thing about that gun that was used to destroy, not destroy all the people, not the ship, but like, was it the cinder gun or something? And anyway, sorry, I'm very inarticulate. I'm just like, what? When she starts eating the shards, and each shard is another memory, and then she gets to the point where she's like, I could lose myself if I carry on. But she's already decided she's going to carry on.
I think you're perfectly articulate. I really understand what you're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. And just that visual of eating the shards was so cool.
That's like something that really sticks out in my memory. Just that scene in particular is like, oh my god, shit is going down.
I also really liked the standoff with Vahens, the kind of spy person, because like her emails throughout were kind of like, I looked forward to the next email, the next installment, because she had just such a quirky voice, and I thought she was really entertaining. And so then to have that standoff at the end from her perspective, I was just like, and like I couldn't work out what was going to happen, how it was going to end, and I should have realized like the servitors have been on Cheris's side like the whole time, that they would like somehow be involved. And
I love that in that same kind of vein, Jadao called himself a gosling because he imprinted. I thought that was such a random thing, but I was like, that makes total sense. I like that.
Jadao's humor was fantastic the entire time. I felt like Jadao's amazing, and like how he puts up with his life being a revenant, being put in a black box every 1,000 years or so. Like, I don't know. Like, it was one of those things where I knew it couldn't become my second favorite trope of like potentially evil guy becomes significant other romance story because he wasn't corporeal, but I kind of kept hoping there'd be a way around it.
I'd have been there for that.
Just want him to be happy.
I feel like that dynamic between them is just like excellent, and there's some great dialogue, great banter. It's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to be vague about it, but I do remember something I loved about in this book, and I don't remember when I felt also very like satisfied with the answers I got, but like the mystery behind Cheris herself and why she does what she does, and like trying to figure out her motivations, I thought was really interesting. Like, she's obviously really bright, and she's just the definition of like the worker who works too hard and then gets given the worst job because she's too good at what she does. Like, put under that bus. I feel like we've all been there when we accidentally showed our bosses that we're capable of things. Like, one should never do that.
Yeah.
And then given this impossible task, but also just like her history, like her family history and things like that. She's a really interesting character, and I think she gets a little overshadowed by Jadao, but I still really like her.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading some reviews last night to try and make sense of the entire thing. And a lot of the reviewers agreed that the author seemed to favour Jadao once he came in and completely forget about Cheris. So yeah, I would agree with that, I think. Not that I didn't like him, but I would have liked more Cheris and exploration of her before Jadao came in, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that there definitely is a bigger emphasis on Jadao's characterization, but I think it also makes sense with how revenants work. So he like kind of built it in terms of like, when you have a revenant with you, there is this tug of war for personality and stuff like that. Like, I mean, she even has to try and stop herself from like walking a certain way and getting that southern drawl in her voice.
Yeah.
And I liked the whole kind of dynamic of, is he insane? Does that therefore mean she is going insane? Or is he perfectly sane and has just made everyone think he's insane, and therefore she is still perfectly sane, but she might still be going insane because she's got his voice in her head, and he's a very different character and personality to her. And like that whole thing, and like we already mentioned the scene where she starts having a shouting match with him, but no one can hear his side of the argument, and then she suddenly realizes everyone's listening, and he's kind of, the way he kind of tricked her into doing things that she hadn't planned on doing, but then she started like playing back against that, and it made her do things that she wouldn't have thought of doing before. But it wasn't his influence, because there's one point where he says, well, that's not the decision I would have made, but go with it, you've done, like, you're doing the right thing. And she's like, that a good thing or not? That he thinks I made a good choice. And,
well, and like how they had complementary skills, right? Like he was very big picture and she could actually do the maths and he could never do the maths. And I love that dynamic and how that was why they were paired up, right? It's like, well, part of it at least.
And also what he was waiting for, which was like...
It's like, oh, they made a mistake.
but going to Kerry's point, like, I really liked the kind of like, is he or isn't he insane? And the sort of side part was like, if he's not insane, is he just evil? Like, was there a reason? Is he just a bad person? And I really like kind of like a lot of the ambiguity of kind of Paris trying to figure out what the hell is going on and how to kind of deal with the fact that she's got someone in her head. Although I think, frankly, she took it a lot better than I would. If I woke up with someone else's voice in my head, I would lose my shit. Like, she was just like, oh, there's some dude in my head. And I'd be like, no. No. But also, one of my favorite scenes was when he didn't agree with what she was doing, and then she sort of explained it to him, and he went, oh, actually, yeah, that's a good idea. And I think it was possibly the same thing you're talking about. But originally, he didn't like it, and then she kind of like explained it more, and he went, oh, okay, yes, not what I'd have done, but yes. And I was just like, it really showed that he kind of come to respect her as well as just accept her as a host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I just love their interactions. And the sassiness of some of the characters was just great.
Yoon Ha Lee is hysterical and only gets funnier the more you read in the series, but also the short story collection has author notes at the end of each short story.
Oh.
And they're the funniest things.
Yeah.
Like the rationale behind they do some certain things, and they're really funny.
It was also nice to see where he got his Twitter name, Deuce of Gears, because I had no idea until I read this, and then it was like, light bulb.
I didn't know that was his name. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm curious. So how do you think Phoenix Extravagant compares to this series for those who have read it, which may just be Stephanie? I don't know.
I've read it too. Stephanie and I read it together. So Phoenix Extravagant is not difficult to read if you read fantasy at all. Okay. The world building is very straightforward. It's obviously very inspired by Korea being invaded by Japan. So it's very grounded, like a lot of fantasy, grounded in historical events in its telling. It's definitely still very creative and like different in terms of like its fantastical elements. Jebby is so different from any character you have met in this series. Jebby is just this soft artist who just wants to art and ends up having to do things. And it's like, I just want to art. Why? Why are these things happening?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So a very different character. And I still don't understand the ending. I'm still just like, why?
Yeah. The ending was why I deducted a star.
Oh, wow.
But I did enjoy the book, and I agree with everything Angela said. And I would reread it again if I was in the mood for something just more light and easy. But I definitely liked this one a lot better.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think part of it is this has more of the humor and like it feels, I don't know, it's not that Phoenix Extravagant didn't feel like adult fantasy, but this feels like adult science fiction. Mm-hmm. And Phoenix Extravagant at times had such a whimsical tone that was so jarring with the revolutionary themes that I was just like, what is happening?
Interesting. Okay.
But it does have a very cool dragon mech who is a pacifist war dragon.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of awesome elements, and like this is not very long, and it's a standalone. But it's a standalone where you read the ending, and I'm like,
yeah, I hate that.
So. It was a choice.
Oh dear.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. It's such a choice.
Well, now I'm kind of curious. I do have it on my Kindle, so perhaps I'll.
But yeah, it's not bad, and it's still obviously Yoon Ha Lee's voice and world building. But I love Machineries of Empire, and I like Phoenix Extravagant.
That's fair.
So. Probably because it made me work, but also, I don't know.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like a chore work. It felt like fun work, like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone still have like questions about the first book that they're confused about?
Like so many.
Well, you can ask, and
I don't even know what my questions are.
I think maybe just go with please explain book to me.
I mean, I did make a video on that. I did.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that and see.
I think it's helpful.
All the reviews that I was reading last night really helped, actually. Because it was stuff that I had considered, but I just wasn't sure if it was correct. So I needed someone to tell me that I was thinking the right thing.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, eventually there's some more solidified. Oh, of all of my theories, yes, this is the correct one as you read it. But yeah, it's definitely a world where none of our characters are actually thinking about how the world works because it's the world that they live in. So, which, like, I don't know. I do love info dumps. But for some reason, it didn't bother me that this didn't have info dumps.
Well, I feel like I mean, I kind of mentioned this, I guess, but with each book, it gets more clear, and I feel like it's just really rewarding to keep reading it and be like, aha, I understand something a little bit more now.
Yeah.
And if, like, you've been looking for books with trans main characters, the next book, one of the point of view is trans. It was very good. Which, like, the author's trans, so I'm not surprised that entered into this. And
I didn't know that either.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're trans, and I think so I have a friend who has a booktube who is autistic, and she had, like, a video of autistic authors writing books and put Yoon Ha Lee on there. So based off that, I guess, also publicly out as autistic.
Interesting. So I feel like this series does have some really excellent representation in general, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it also has, like, in terms of, like, more LGBTQ stuff. You definitely have bisexuality, homosexuality. You've got polygamy. You get a lot of the letters are represented. Although I don't actually know if there is any asexual representation.
I didn't see any.
Yeah, I don't remember
that.
I
don't think so.
Yeah, I think.
So it has a lot of the letters, but not all the letters.
Likely. But no, I definitely really enjoyed it. I just have lots of questions about, like, how it all works, but that's because I enjoy it enough to be nosy. And I will very much likely pick up the first one. Sorry, what is that background of me?
I don't know. Who knows where that's coming from? Yeah.
That's why I keep it occasionally, because I can hear it coming up and I'm like, I think that's me. I don't know why, but my headphones are upstairs, so
yeah.
I thought it was raining somewhere.
What was your favorite exotic effect?
It's a challenge.
That's hard.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't really talk about it a lot, but I thought something that was so cool and so kind of nefarious as well as Kell formations. So and that's another part of this book I really like, because it also had military sci-fi, which is, I don't love fantasy military stuff, but I love sci-fi military stuff. I don't know why. It should be the same, right? Like, I don't know why they're different to me. But this one, where you do have this, like, nefarious, ominous thing of people are trained and brainwashed to follow commands and follow a hierarchy, but then also you have these literal geometric formations that people go into to make shields or make weapons and do all of these effects. I thought all of that was really interesting in a very dark way. Like, that's the first moment that you really, like, know, I am in a dark place. Like, this is not a good government. Yeah, like, that's not surprising. Whenever you read a military sci-fi, it's never shocking when it's like, government's on your side. Like,
I have to say, like, because it's quite early on as well, I was like, oh, that's very cool, but also super creepy, and I do not approve. Like, it just felt like
I found it creepy.
No, it's super creepy. It's not ideal. I think Judith was mentioning that her wife didn't like this book because of that aspect of it. Like, it was just not in their jar of things they wanted to consume, sort of thing.
Yeah, because there's a bit quite early on, isn't there, when they're in the battle on the planet, and she gives the order to do a heretical formation because of the heresies have affected how the formation's working. And the one company's like, no, we're not doing that. And it's like, okay, then you're just going to get destroyed. Great. Fine. I'm like, oh, okay. This is what we're in for, is it?
I love how quietly brilliant Cheris is. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I know I shouldn't do this, but we're in a heretical calendar. I need to get things to work, so I'm going to rearrange some things. And
Yeah. And I also like that, like, she accepts that people like are unhappy about it, but like as you said, like they're like, well, you're kind of probably gonna die if you don't follow it, so awkward. but you know, like she's sad about it, but she's like, I like there's nothing else I can really do right now. And you know, it does deal with the fact that actually it's really uncomfortable for everybody. Like,
and I suppose it's an element of her character development as she moves more and more away from the cult, that like when the bodies start piling up when she's Brevet General, then she's like, is it okay that all these people are dying because of what my orders are, which wouldn't have crossed her mind at the beginning of the book.
Well, I know Cheris doesn't get... I know, like, it's weird because I agree that Jadao gets so much more personality than Cheris, but I thought Cheris's subdued personality was a personality. Like, she's just this, for me, was just this very quiet, person who would probably have just been happy existing at home and doing a job. And that was an option for her, but she chose to leave that option. So it was such a dissonant thing that I always found so compelling. And it did end up following a trajectory that made sense to me. But it was just like, man, I have this really smart individual who actively chose to join a faction when she didn't need to, and then actively chose a faction that isn't the one that's aligned with her. Like, why does she do what she's doing? It's so interesting. And then, like, how she's so nice to the servitors, and they're just, like, watching soap operas. And I'm just like...
I loved that.
Like, that's so relatable. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I loved that. Like, her relationship with the servitors was just like, I genuinely would have read a book of that. Like,
well, you should probably check out that short story anthology if you finish it.
Yeah.
Well,
that short story anthology is the definition of, did you want to see this random scene that should not be in the novels because it makes no sense, but it's like, here's a fun little thing.
Oh, yay. That makes me
I love
happy.
that. Like, random short stories and scenes from books that don't quite fit are excellent.
That's basically the majority. And also, if you end up loving the third book, you have to read the novella in the short story. Like,
absolutely.
It's a must.
Yeah.
So, well, okay. I say that again as if you like it. Like, you don't have to do anything. You're an adult.
You tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. I mean, it's like, you know.
I mean, yeah. It was immensely satisfying because we get some answers after the third book ends. And I was like, this is what I wanted.
Like, you can end at the third book. It's completely satisfying. And it's not like one of those additional endings that make you hate the original ending. It's just if you wanted to know how people were doing. Like, so.
I like that. I think I said in the chat, I had a weird dream last night after reading this about bug, animal, people hybrids. It was very vivid. And slightly disappointing.
My weird book dream last night didn't have to do with this, but like it was like the fifth Dresden File book wasn't written by Jim Butcher. It was like a different author, and like Dresden wasn't in the first part of the book, and I was having a really fun time. And I was very invested, and I was so confused because I haven't thought about like Dresden Files in forever. Book dreams are weird, but I really wanted to read the book that my dream had made up. But I don't remember enough of it to even attempt to write it myself. And it was more like feelings. Like, I remember whatever I was reading was making me emotional. Like, I was sad and excited and stressed. Which, you know, I just like to be put through the emotional rigmarole when I read books. So it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. I'm surprised I didn't cry in this book, because mostly, like, every book we've read, there's one scene where I'm like, and I was crying. But this one was just fun.
Yeah, that's true. I
mean, it was hard hearing about some of Jadao's backstory, but yeah, I didn't cry.
Yeah.
Do you think you would if you reread it, Angela?
I'm not a big crier. Like, I mean, I cry. Okay, correction. I cry if I'm listening to a musical, and it can just be the opening chords. Like, nothing could have happened, and if I just hear like the opening chords, I'm like, I'm a mess. Like when Hamilton went to Disney Plus, the opening scene's just happening. I'm crying into a burrito. Like I don't, I'm not even there.
You could usually like.
So like music can make me cry. It like can do a thing. Reading, it's really hard. I can have feelings, like I'll feel an ache or something, but I don't know. I think the last time, maybe it's because of She Who Must Not Be Named, because I cried in the 7th book, and then she undid the thing that made me cry.
Right.
I was like, well, what was the point of that? I was so sad. And
that's actually one of my least favorite tropes. As a side note, undoing deaths or.
I didn't dab my face with the burrito, Stephanie.
I
was eating the burrito and crying. Okay, it was both things.
You said crying into a burrito. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, regardless, I cry a lot at musicals. Sad scenes, or just it's starting, or like the end of Act 1 of Wicked every time. Don't know why. It's not even my favorite musical, but that's a very good last song for an Act 1. It's like solid.
I get that. Like bagpipes, as soon as I start playing, I tear up.
I mean, I tear up.
That's so specific.
I know. Or even like Amazing Grace on bagpipes. I'm not a religious person, but that one gets me every time.
Yeah. No, so music is big for me. The written word, not as much, and not as much movies, unless it's cued with a musical scene, like the beginning of Oliver and Company, when no one's going to adopt that cat.
Oh, no, I can't watch it.
Every time.
I made Quill watch it recently because we were doing a Disney marathon, and
when he's in the box and it's raining.
Yeah,
I know.
And he's the last one. Also, I don't understand why he was left.
He was the cutest one. I didn't understand.
Also, what was a horrible person just leaves one kitten? Why wouldn't you take both of them?
There was a lot.
2 cats originally.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't cry during books, but I do feel things. Like Stephanie was there when I was reading Ship of Destiny. I just like get very like amped. I'm just like, what? I need this to happen this way so I can be okay.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I'm generally quite a big crier, but it's very rare that a book will make me cry. And I don't know whether it's an aphantasia thing that like I don't get drawn in the same way, or it's. But like, yeah, music sets me off, films set me off all the time, but it's rare that I will actually cry at a book.
I cry over everything.
All of the time. I have aphantasia as well, and I cry at books all of the time.
I'm trying to. I mean, I really can't think of the last time a book made me cry. Like it's been a very long time. Like I think His Dark Materials might have when I was a kid. But
I'm more like, what was the last book that didn't make me cry?
Apparently, this one. You just said it.
Yeah.
Well, should we talk about what next month's book is? Unless people have other Ninefox Gambit thoughts. I know Amber's probably not reading the sequel, but I know Carrie is.
Probably not.
I mean, that's fair. I think that's fair. You gave it 300 pages. That's a third of the series.
I did.
Yeah.
Are the others all the same length as well? Okay.
Yeah, the whole series
well, if
is
I did
shorter
want
than
to
Way
read
of
it.
Kings. That's how I sell it to people.
If I did want to read it, it's not a massive time commitment, but it's a lot of brain power.
You've gotten through the worst of the brain power. I honestly can say that. You're back.
Yeah, I had to switch computers because my other computer was like, "Oh, we're just not going to connect to the internet. We're not going to work." I'm like, okay, cool, thanks.
No, but in the sequel books, you more have characters who are not as into the technology. You have one person who's a shoe who loves to eat. It's a big focus. His snacks at meetings.
I feel like
I might relate to him more.
You have the trans character. You meet an Anden who's really interesting. And then later on, you do get a servitor perspective, which is really fun. So there's some good stuff.
You should read the second book.
I'm not saying she should do anything. I'm giving her the information to make
It's
an
good to have
informed
the
decision.
I can think about
Like
it.
an informed decision.
Yeah, an informed decision. That's all.
Like, I'm easily swayed by all of yours, so I will probably pick it up. But I will say that actually, like I probably struggled with it a bit more because I was convinced I was going to love it because you guys were like, yes, this is the best book since sliced bread.
I will say I gave the first book 4 stars, and I feel like everyone forgets that. Like I gave it 4. I didn't give it.
Yeah, I did too.
When I saw it, I was like, I thought she really loved this book. But
I do really love it, but I accept that it's not perfect. That's a weird thing, right? Like a book can be a favorite, but not a 5-star sometimes. Like that's a Venn diagram that exists.
Yeah,
definitely.
If it's a favorite, 5-star, then that's...
Well, I think it's honestly on reread, it'll be a 5-star. I think on
That
reread the
happens
entire
to me
series
a
will
lot.
be a
On reflection, I definitely bump things up to 5 stars. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't give it 5 stars to begin with. It was perfect, but not actually, scientifically perfect.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like it doesn't have to be a perfect book to get a 5-star. It has to be a book that like I get to the end and I have no qualms about giving it 5 stars. It's more than like if I have any doubt as to whether it's a 5-star, then it's not.
Yeah.
So for me, at the end of this one, I was like, instant 5 stars. I love this. I love the way it made me feel. I love like the vibes I got from it. Like, I was just so drawn in. And I think because I've been a bit slumpy, like with like through September, I was barely reading, and so this has just like got me back in the reading zone.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, I think also if I had been using half stars at the time, this would have been a 4.5 star. I don't know. I mean, at the time, there was definitely a reason it wasn't a 5-star, but then since I had done that, I have done all these videos, and then I had read the other books, and like I just think about it a lot, very fondly. And I'm just like, and maybe it's because I didn't get the weird romance that I wanted. That couldn't have happened anyways. Like maybe I just...
There wasn't really romance in it, and like there wasn't any romance to distract from the actual plot. So you know
that's fair. I just wanted.
No, see, I'm with Ariel. Like I like that there's no romance. So and you know it's nice to have that occasionally.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just like having weird ships.
Yeah.
I get entertained.
Here's the thing I didn't notice. It's not a spoiler. It's something I didn't notice till the very end of the series. These ships are organic. They're not made of metal.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. When they say something moth, it's a moth.
It's a moth.
Oh!
Yeah. It gets real interesting.
I think it was so cool.
I think like I think Amber was implying like relationships with.
Oh, sorry. No, I was talking about the ship.
But it works on both levels.
Yes.
in this case, because I did the same thing. I was like, does she mean the actual flying?
I meant like shipping.
Well, next month we're reading. Well, we're discussing Summer Suns. I've already read it. I think Kayla's already read it.
Yeah, same.
Nice.
When you read it, it's not fast-paced. It's not a fast-paced book. It is character-driven. You are
prepare yourself for Fast and the Furious.
It is a discussion on grief and corruption in academia and the burdens of family heritage and toxic masculinity and queer identity. It's very heavy. It's very heavy.
Yeah. I found it really slow for basically all of the book, and then it does pick up towards the end, and I feel like that's when there was a lot of character development. But like for most of the book,
there was character development earlier. You just don't like slow-paced books.
I don't know. I did not like the main character for basically all of the book.
Yeah, well, the main character is kind of a turd, but also dealing with shit.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And like, to be fair, I did note that in my review where I was like, he is clearly going through some times, and that's probably affecting some of his behavior.
Here's your sneak peek at Kayla and I going at it over Summer Suns.
I can't wait.
I'm definitely going to see it, but also I feel like I need a gif of you being like, the main character is kind of a turd. Just
okay, the book is discussing toxic masculinity. None of these characters are inherently likable.
Yeah.
They have some issues.
I'm not interested in reading the book, partly because it's really expensive to buy over here and I don't have any money. But I'm interested in watching the live show, even though I haven't read the book, just to see you two.
More people need to be there. I'm not doing a 1v1.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I'm definitely going to read
give
this
it
one.
3.5 stars in the end. So like I did like it. I just didn't love it, and there were some problems I had with it. But
I mean, I also only gave this 4 stars. I just disagree that the character development only happened at the end.
I just like that when you said Fast and Furious, Amber like perked up.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
love
just
it.
like,
It's my favorite
"Ugh."
franchise, apart from Jurassic Park.
I would say you learn that a lot of that franchise is good music when you read this book. You're like, this isn't bad, but where's the epic music?
yeah,
And
yeah. You gotta have that like pump up music, you know, like yeah.
maybe get yourself a playlist for those scenes.
That probably would have helped, honestly. I discovered I really like watching those scenes, but reading it did not translate well for me. And I was like, oh my god, I hate this so much. So I don't know. It was a roller coaster.
Yeah, so that we don't have a date for that yet, but we will definitely post it in the Discord and Twitter and all that. So probably beginning mid-November-ish.
Oh, it better be somewhere in the first half. Once we get into holiday season, I'm out.
Yeah.
I know
That's why I suggested the break.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we're taking a break in December for the holidays, and then we'll pick back up in January.
But are we?
We're going to read a book in November and discuss it in December, but we're not reading a book in December to discuss in January. We need a better system.
We do. Maybe we could rearrange it for next year.
Yes.
Yeah, like we could discuss it in the last weekend of the month, but I feel like all of us need that last weekend to actually read the book.
Well, it depends if we start reading sooner.
Yeah.
This one was like we delayed the live show for 2 weeks to get a weekend that we could all do, and 3 of us wouldn't have finished the book if we hadn't have done.
I mean, I'm just no
Definitely
matter
would've
when
read it.
it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna read it the day before, but yeah, it was my fault. It was 2 weeks late this time.
Fine.
But yeah, but it was good. It was worth it.
Having a lot of us on.
Do what?
It's also been nice having a lot of us on.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Absolutely.
you want to sign us off, Amber? Since you're technically in charge.
Technically. I'm not sure I should be.
You even chose the faction that was like the big faction.
It's because no one else had it. I had to be different. So thank you everyone for watching, or if you're going to watch later, because I don't think anyone's actually tuned in at this point. I'm sorry I didn't like the book. I apologize.
You're kicked out.
But everyone else did, so I really enjoyed this discussion. Hopefully everyone else did too. And we'll speak to you again next month.